105 The Zone, driven by the Ram trucks. Jeep Grand Cherokees, Mac Hike in Flowood. Visit MacHikeFlowwood.com for your next pre-owned or new Ram truck. Mac Hike in Flowood and MacHikeFlowwood.com. Our guests join us on the Bucked Up Energy Drinks guest line. We welcome in Marcus Mosher, Cowboys insider. And we were talking about it earlier in the show, and it's been all over social media. It looks like the Cowboys will move off of Amari Cooper to sign Michael Gallup and Dalton Schultz. And people like Marcus are asking the question, why? And, of course, Zeke Elliott's still on the roster, taking up a lot of space and money. Marcus, how bad of a move is this if the Cowboys move off of Cooper to sign Gallup and Schultz?
Yeah, so let's just first talk about the Cowboys cutting or trading Amari for a late-round pick. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but none of their moves with Amari have made sense. They traded for Amari in 2018 because their plan at wide receiver was so bad that it was actively hurting Dak Prescott's development. They traded for Amari, and all of a sudden the team took off. Dak took off, and he became a franchise quarterback. He put up monster numbers in 2019. And then the Cowboys let Amari hit free agency. And because they let him hit free agency and get other offers, they had to pay him more. And now 2 years later, they're complaining that they had to pay him more. So it doesn't really make any sense. It doesn't make the offense better. And more importantly, it doesn't make Dak Prescott better moving on from Amari. So I have no idea why they're doing this other than just to try to appease the people that care about the salary cap.
So who's driving this? Is it Jerry Jones or Stephen Jones, or is it a salary cap guy in the front office?
Yeah, I think it's Stephen Jones, who, I mean, we haven't heard for sure, but I don't think Stephen was somebody that was interested in trading for Amari Cooper in the first place, because his plan was, hey, let's keep Cole Beasley and Terrence Williams and Deontay Thompson. We don't need a big number one receiver. And now, because they've made so many other poor decisions cap-wise, they're looking at Amari Cooper's contract and thinking, hey, we can save $60 million here. Let's do that.
So is there anyone that can challenge Stephen Jones in the room, you think, within the franchise?
I mean, it's Jerry Jones, but I don't necessarily think Jerry's at the stage of his career where he's going to do that. He's kind of given the reins over to Stephen Jones to make this decisions as he wants to. So I don't get it. We should also talk about the Michael Gallup situation, because I don't get how it makes sense to cut Amari Cooper and then immediately give Michael Gallup close to the same amount of money, because the rumors and the whispers that we're hearing is that Michael Gallup wants $13 to $14 million per year. And why would you give him Amari's money when Gallup is now coming off two pretty major injuries, including a calf injury and a torn ACL, and he might not be ready for the start of the season. Plus, even when he was there the last couple of years, he was, of the three receivers they had, he was the least efficient with Dak. This doesn't make any sense to me.
No, it does. So I don't remember if it was you and we're visiting with Marcus Mosher, Cowboys insider, host of Locked On Cowboys podcast. And if you don't follow him on Twitter, he's great. Great follow on Twitter, cracks me up, at Marcus_Mosher. I don't remember if it was you or someone else that said, basically, if the Cowboys didn't have Tony Romo and Dak Prescott the last 15-plus years, that they could almost be like the Detroit Lions.
I mean, yeah, it's the truth, right? Because the Lions and the Cowboys are in Washington, I believe, are the only three teams in the last 25 years that haven't made it to the NFC Championship game, right? It's those three teams. And the Cowboys have basically had elite quarterback play during that entire stretch, right? I mean, between Dak and between Romo, they've had two monsters at quarterback, and yet it's still not been good enough. I think those two guys have covered up so many flaws and mistakes of the front office that we're just now starting to realize that.
So you just hit on something else. Maybe Steven didn't want to do the trade for Amari, and it's been very, very successful. That's something else that Dallas doesn't do, Marcus. And as someone who you're all over the NFL draft too, but free agency, it's almost like they draft people and they believe we've got to stay with them because we're the smartest people in the room. And Dallas should be an unbelievable free agency destination because of the market and the star and all that. Why do you think they don't play in that free agency market any more than they do, knowing that players like to live there and play with the star on their helmet, and it gives them more opportunities for endorsement deals? Mosher?
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think they believe in drafting, developing, and then keeping your homegrown talent. I think that's why they're going to pay Dalton Schultz and Michael Gallup over Amari, because Amari is clearly better than those two guys. But they didn't draft Amari, right? They traded for Amari, and they view that as, different. They believe that drafting and developing is the way to build a team, and I just don't see that anymore. I think, obviously, you have to draft well, but you've got to be aggressive in free agency, and you've got to be able to go out and make trades. And I think part of the problem here was what's happening with Stephen Jones is they believe, hey, if we draft a guy and we're loyal to them, and they're loyal to us, we'll end up getting a better deal on the open market. They're going to want to stay in Dallas rather than going to Jacksonville, right? That hasn't really happened. Every contract they've given to a player that they drafted, they've way overpaid, whether it's Ezekiel Elliott, Jalen Smith, Blake Jarwin. They have not gotten the benefit of the doubt on any of these kind of contracts. So Cowboys are in a tough spot right now.
Do you see any scenario where they back off this and somehow Stephen Jones has an epiphany or bumps his head today or has the right vodka tonic later this afternoon and realizes that he doesn't need to do this with Amari Cooper?
I think the only way Amari comes back is if Gallup's contract ends up getting to be too much, where the closer we get to free agency and the more agents start to talk, and if they find out Michael Gallup wants $15 to $16 million a year, and Amari's open to taking less money or restructuring his contract in a way that the Cowboys can save cap space this year and maybe still get out of this deal in the next year or two, maybe. But that's about the only scenario. I fully expect over the next week or two for the Cowboys to give Gallup a long-term deal, to franchise tag Dalton Schultz, and see Amari Cooper walk out the door. Yep.
People are laughing at them. Do you think that Stephen Jones has any idea that people in the business look at this and just go, this is insane?
Oh, I know for a fact that agents and other teams at the NFL Combine this week were laughing at the mismanagement of the Cowboys between how they handled the Dak situation compared to how they handled the Ezekiel Elliott contract, right? Ezekiel Elliott, after 3 years, was holding out, and the Cowboys paid him everything he wanted, right? But instead with Dak, they waited and waited and waited. They still had to give him everything they wanted. So, yeah, across the NFL, I think people know Stephen Jones is not his dad, and you can beat him in deals.
Does Dak have the chips to raise hell with Stephen Jones and try to get this thing turned around in the next couple of days?
My guess is not right now, no. But I think we're trending in a really interesting situation, right? Because we're in year 2 of a 4-year extension for Dak. Let's say things go poorly this year, next year, and we're in the final year. Dak might say, hey, you guys have not put together a team that's competitive enough to try to win Super Bowls, right? You haven't done what the Rams have done or what the Chiefs have done. Unless you go all in, I'm out. I would think Stephen Jones and Will McClay and Jerry Jones would look at this the next couple of years as their championship window. And not only just the championship window, but also trying to sell Dak that, hey, we are a team that's going to put together a very competitive roster, because if you're not going to do that, maybe he leaves in a couple of years.
Marcus Mosher, Dallas Cowboys insider, Locked On Cowboys podcast. He joins us on the Bucked Up Energy Drinks guest line. Okay, so why do you – Dak and the offense did not look good down the stretch. I don't know, was it the calf injury? Was it I'm not buying in on Kellen Moore as the next boy wonder, but I understand, some people are. What did you chalk that up to? Was it Dak? Was it the offensive line and the pieces that were moving around? Or was it Kellen Moore? Why did they struggle down the stretch, Marcus?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think it's a complicated answer, right? I think the offensive line obviously didn't help, right? They clearly faded as the year went on. The running game was just not as good. But I think the bigger issue was Amari Cooper wasn't healthy. From after he got COVID and missed 2 games, he just really was never himself. Until we got to the playoff game, I thought he looked healthy then. And when he's not healthy, the offense really struggles, because he's the only one, again, when healthy, that can win consistently one-on-one, beat his matchup, win with route running, be in the right spot at the right time. Well, the Cowboys are looking at things like, hey, well, if he's not going to be healthy and our offense is going to struggle, when it should be, we need to get somebody in addition to Amari Cooper that can win his matchup, that can win against press man-to-man coverage. I'm terrified to imagine what the offense is going to look like without Amari, because, again, he's the only one that can beat man-to-man coverage.
I don't understand how Steven and even Jerry can't look at what the Rams did and go, and even Tampa Bay the year before, and so what some of the other teams are trying to do and say, yeah, this is the play. You've got – it's like, Marcus, we're a big SEC football show right here in the heart of SEC football country, and the transfer portal is a big deal, and you've got to understand how to leverage it and get involved and get in there and make your roster better. I'm still just blown away that they don't understand the power of free agency and the fact that they're in an incredible market, unlike like Green Bay, where free agents don't want to go there. Marcus?
I think it's this is such a difficult question, but I think there's a lack of urgency around the Cowboys, right? Because Stephen Jones knows that he's never going to get fired, right? Jerry Jones is never going to get fired, right? So their goal is to keep the Cowboys competitive every year. Not necessarily win a Super Bowl, right? The goal is just to make sure, hey, in 2022, 23, 24, that we all have competitive teams with big primetime games that have great numbers. I don't see the urgency like the Rams had where, hey, Les Snead, the GM, if you don't win a Super Bowl soon, you're gone. Or Sean McVay, if you don't win a Super Bowl soon, we might move on. There's just not that urgency in Dallas.
All right. So if they do all this nonsense, move off Cooper, sign Gallup and Schultz, do you think that they will strongly consider a wide receiver in the first round or an O-lineman?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a wide receiver in the first round. I do. First of all, I don't necessarily think there's an offensive lineman at 24 that they would love. I think there's a couple that they would like. But a receiver, I think there's some guys that Kellen Moore believes would fit the offense well, that that would work well with Dak and CeeDee Lamb. I think that's probably the plan, and I just don't see how releasing Amari Cooper and drafting a receiver in round 1 makes your team any better.
Who do you think could be there that you would really like that can step in? He's not going to be Amari probably, but that can step in and play and have a tremendous impact, possibly as a rookie.
Yeah, Chris Olave isn't my favorite receiver in the class, but he might be my favorite fit with the Cowboys because he does have the deep speed that they've been missing. Not great after the catch, but he can win with incredible route running. He can make plays down the field. He can play in the slot on the outside. And I just think that's the type of receiver that Dak likes. I kind of compare him to like a Calvin Ridley type of player.
Yeah.
I think CeeDee Lamb, Gallup, and Chris Olave is a nice receiving core just by itself.
Mm-hmm. Marcus Mosher, Dallas Cowboys insider, Locked On Cowboys podcast. He joins us on ESPN 105.9 The Zone. All right, let's switch gears. Matt Corral played just 2 hours up the road from us at Ole Miss, and Charles Cross 2 hours up the road the other way at Mississippi State. Let's start with Corral. I thought he was brilliant, dynamic, in the toughest division of all of college football when they don't have as much talent as several teams within the division. The Malik Willis thing is fascinating to me, the hype train all of a sudden the last few days, but whatever. Where are you with Matt Corral and where he could end up in the first round, Marcus?
Yeah, I mean, I do think Matt Corral will end up being a first-round pick. It's just where. A month and a half ago, I think you could have convinced me that he was going to be the first quarterback drafted. But over the last few weeks, it seems like he's going to settle into being picked, maybe somewhere in the late teens or early 20s. And actually for him, I wonder if that's a better thing, right? Go to a team that's a little bit better, that's not asking him to be the franchise saver or anything. If he goes to the Saints, right, and he's with Pete Carmichael, the offensive coordinator there, and with a team that has a really good offensive line, a really good defense, and some weapons in Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara, I think that would make a lot of sense. I just think something like that would be great for his overall stock, and that's kind of where I see him landing, late teens, early 20s.
So you feel like when you look at this, are you going Malik Willis as the first guy?
No, I'm going to bet Kenny Pickett's the first.
Okay, you're going Pickett with Pitt. All right. Okay.
Yep. I think Carolina at 6 and Denver at 9 are two landing spots for Kenny Pickett.
All right. What about Charles Cross? Do you see him in the top 10, top 15? Where do you see Cross going out of Mississippi State?
I have a hard time believing that he gets out of the top 15 for a couple different reasons. Number one, he's really good. He's really, really good. And there's so many teams that need offensive tackles. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he ends up being like a top 7 or 8 pick. We could see 3 tackles drafted inside of the top 8. Wouldn't surprise me at all. I know a couple teams across the league think Cross is the best offensive tackle in this class. He's even better than Evan Neal, even better than Ike Ekwonu at North Carolina State. So if you can get him any time after the first 7 or 8 picks, I think it's a huge value.
Let's go back to Corral. Can you give me look? This guy, he's accurate. He can throw the deep ball. He ran for 200 yards against Tennessee. You don't want to run that much, but he is capable of making people miss and stretching a defense. And obviously, you can't do that as much in the NFL. He'll have to learn to slide and all that. But can you give me a comp for Matt Corral?
Yeah, I think he's everything that people envisioned Baker Mayfield coming out of Oklahoma, right? A little bit of a shorter quarterback, but somebody that had this incredible arm talent, can actually make plays outside of the pocket. It's something that people have talked about with Baker Mayfield that he can't do. He can run, he can move. I love the velocity throwing the ball down the sidelines and down the seams. I think a better version of Baker Mayfield is what you're getting in Corral.
And give me a comp for Kenny Pickett, quarterback out of Pitt, that you think will be the first quarterback taken.
Yeah, I see a lot of similarities to Kirk Cousins. And I know when you say that, you get some people that roll their eyes or kind of laugh. But Kirk Cousins has been a quality starting quarterback in the league the last 10 years. So somebody who can get the ball to your playmakers, not going to be overly dynamic, not going to wow you with arm talent, but pretty consistently good. And I think for teams that just need a B+ at quarterback, he makes a lot of sense.
All right. And then how do you see do you think Aaron Rodgers is a starting quarterback for the Green Bay Packers in 2022?
I do. I just think he loves this process of everybody telling him how great he is and where he should go and being courted and all this stuff. I think he learned from Brett Favre how great it is to have everybody talking about you 24/7. I do think it makes ultimately the most sense to go back to Green Bay for a couple of reasons. Not only because of the football fit, right? Playing with, the guys the coaching staff but the NFC is pretty weak in general. That division, the NFC North, is going to be atrocious outside of Green Bay. The Rams, I don't think, are going to be as good. The NFC East, I think Dallas is obviously going to take a hit with some of their guys they're going to move on from. I think it makes sense for him to go back to Green Bay.
All right. We'll leave it there. Marcus Mosher on the Out of Bounds Show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone. Follow Marcus on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. He is the host of Locked On Cowboys and the managing editor for the Raiders Wire. And, boy, that's depressing as a Dak Prescott fan that I just frustrates me. All right, hold on, 20 seconds. Is Kellen Moore overmatched against really good defensive coordinators in the NFL?
No, I think he's fine. I think he's got some stuff he's got to work on and learn, but I still think he's one of the better offensive coordinators in the league.
Okay. And you feel like Dak – I mean –
they're fine together. They're fine. There's some things they need to work on. I think Dak being a little healthier this year will help.
Okay.
They're a good tandem. I don't have any questions about that.
And they need to play Tony Pollard more than Zeke Elliott, right?
Yes. Make Tony Pollard the RB1 there.
All right. You're a great – you crack me up on Twitter. I mean, year round, but on game day, when I'm watching the Red Zone and pouring a beer, Blake and I talk about it all the time. You and Belt are hilarious. Hey, thanks for jumping on. We'd love to get you one more. Blake and I are going out to Vegas for the draft. We're like over the moon excited, and we'd like to get you on one more time. We appreciate it, Marcus.
Of course, anytime. Thanks, guys.
Marcus Mosher, the podcast host of Locked On Cowboys, joining us on the Bucked Up Energy Drinks guest line. Well, I may have to find another team.
RIP football season.
Stephen Jones has got to do better than this. Somebody needs – his wife seems really smart sharp.
Can we put together some money
and
buy
adorable and loves Dak Prescott? And so I wish, like, Dak would maybe talk to her and she would talk to him so that we can not lose Amari Cooper and not spend a lot of money on Michael Gallup and Dalton. I mean, they're good. They're nice players. Don't get me wrong, but Amari Cooper is a difference maker. All right. I wanted to end on a better note. Let's talk food or something. How about that? Let's go with the burger at Bulldog Burger in Lake Harbor and Ridgeland, Starkville, and Tupelo. Bulldog. Oh, my daughter went to Bulldog Burger in Starkville this weekend. She knows where to go. No doubt about it. Blake says I've got to take him to get that chicken sandwich at Bulldog Burger. Now, my theory would be load that thing up with pickles and then do comeback sauce on the side and smash some onion rings at Bulldog Burger in Ridgeland, Lake Harbor, Starkville, Tupelo. Thanks for listening to the show. Lugan Bill and Arch Manning was great. Marcus Mosher on Dak and the Cowboys and everything else was fantastic. Go to Apple Podcast or Spotify and search the Out of Bounds Show.